Hi everybody, welcome back to another day at the camp, and today we're just kind of waiting for it to warm up side a little bit and get a little more light in here. It's about 17 degrees outside and only about 62 in here. Fire went out overnight, so had to get that going again. Louie, you warming up? This fire's going good now. Still gonna grab something to eat for breakfast. Been having some trouble lately with the solar panel and battery system. We just aren't getting the light out here this time of year, and it's causing the batteries to deplete. Definitely can't be running the refrigerator. And of course, the fix for that was to have the generator charge the batteries through the inverter. But what I found is that's not really working out so well, and mainly because it's a three-phase 208 volt generator, or at least that's what I think it is at this point. So we're going to try and address that today and get that working, so get our batteries charged up, utilize that generator, the whole purpose of it. Otherwise it's kind of pointless to have it. The inverter would work with the generator running. It would bypass the load to the generator, allow us to run the microwave and things. What I noticed was the microwave just took longer to heat things up too. It was kind of unexpected. What normally, you'd have warm water or hot water after 2 minutes, or boiling water in a smaller cup. It would just be kind of lukewarm after a minute and a half or 2 minutes, and would always take about an extra 30 seconds or a minute. So something just didn't seem right there. I was looking at the voltage coming out of the inverter. It was only a little over 100 volts, so everything was getting less than it needed, and that was on both sides, both sides. So I had 208 volts coming in. It splits it to neutral to give you about 104 volts on either side, and I was thinking that maybe it would still do 120 on one of the sides to neutral. And it wasn't happening, so I don't think the neutral is even being used, and I'm hoping that's the case, because what we're looking at doing is boosting the voltage off the generator. The other option was to get a different inverter that's a dedicated 120 volt unit, which would have been okay, but that's almost $900, and it's just a high price to pay for being able to charge these batteries when everything else seems to work. So we got a transformer. It was about $95, still more than I wanted to pay. And we'll take a look at that a little bit later, and the wiring of it, and some of the features, and some of the things I'm hoping to get out of it. And hopefully we'll be able to get back up and running so we have power here, reliable power, and just the ability to keep having electricity when the sun is just not shining. Like I said, this time of year, it's just tough to come by. So it really doesn't matter how many panels you have up, because a lot of the days we were only getting 25 watts out of 4 panels, and I don't ever see the day where we would have more than 12 panels out here. So you're looking at 75 watts, which is okay, but that wasn't always the case. When on the real cloudy days, you're not even getting that much. So let's take a look at that and see if we can make some improvements and give us some more reliable backup here when those days just aren't shining like we'd like it to. What do you think, Louie? Is that what you want to do? Get the generator working? You gonna help me out with that? I'm on my own today, so I'm gonna need you to hand me the tools and tell me what to do. So I'm counting on you. Let me describe what I've been experiencing so far, so if any of you guys are having similar things, then maybe this video will hopefully answer some questions you may have about it. So this is a 240 volt AC split phase power inverter rated at 4,000 watts. It's marketed under Sun Gold Power. The wiring, it can take 240 in. I'm not sure if it can do 120. They have a pretty good manual on their Sun Gold Power's website. You can kind of look through that if you're interested in buying this particular one. There are cheaper models out there. This one seems to be pretty reliable and the manual's good and accurate versus some of the other ones I've seen that really don't tell you much of anything, and I found to be not very high quality. So in this case, maybe it's, you get what you pay for, and certainly there are much more expensive designs that may have even greater reliability and maybe don't even have the problems this one does. But everything seems to work on it except the ability to bring in the 208 volt, the single phase, from the three-phase generator. The 208 comes in and it essentially splits it in half down to 104 or 100 volts out on each leg to neutral. So I don't know if it's creating its own neutral or using the neutral coming in. It doesn't seem to, and I'm hoping it doesn't for what I'm trying to put into place to make it work. So, but what would happen is it was successfully starting the generator with a remote start, and I know it's going to be hard to see here, so I'm just going to describe it. The lights would come on saying that you have utility power. They call it shore power on here. That came on, and the light to say that the generator was charging came on. And then there's a little charging rate dial here that lets you control how fast the charger can charge the batteries. This being a 48 volt system, it, according to the manual, will do 40 to 45 amps to charge the batteries, which is roughly 2 kilowatts of power, which is fine. I'm not looking for anything to go any faster. So the issue though is when it's bringing that 208 volts, apparently it wants to see 240 despite the requirement, according to the manual, of only needing like 100 and I think I saw it as low as 164 or 165 volts AC coming in. It's supposed to work, but we're well within that, and the frequency's there, everything seems to meet. But what I was noticing is the output from the charger, even though despite it saying it was on and charging, there was only 40 volts available at the terminals. And if you look at the difference in the target voltage you want coming in from the generator, which is 240, it's about 20% less. So the output is about 20% less than what it needs to charge the battery bank, but it really should be putting out closer to 55 volts. I was seeing about 40, and again, so I'm hoping to bump up that input voltage from the generator, and that's going to cause the inverter to start working. So that's what we're trying to do. And what I have to accomplish that, I found on eBay, it's a used, well, I think it was actually advertised new old stock Dongan transformer. It's made to do three-phase boosting, so you're interested in like a buck boost type transformer. And I've done a little bit of research just to try and nail down this problem, and I would recommend you do some more, because again, this is not necessarily a how-to video. It's just showing what I've experienced and kind of the plan of attack for resolving this. I guess first off, let's talk about cost, because that always comes into play. I think when I originally saw this a couple weeks ago, I think I could have got it for $75 from a different supplier, but I ran across another one, it was $95 shipped. So again, trying to keep costs down, don't really want to spend it, but if this is going to help with the problem, it will be worth it long term versus not having the batteries charged when the electricity, or when the sun is not in full state like we'd like it to be. And today is actually a pretty good day, so it's kind of unusual. Now we're getting some sunshine. In fact, all week we had good sunshine. I wasn't here, but right now we're putting out about 160 watts, and so we're charging them. We used the batteries a little bit last night to heat up some things, watching TV, and so we're recuperating that today. But I'm going to have to bleed that off too, and I plan on actually running a vacuum sweeper to do that, to pull the system down, the batteries, and deplete them and let them charge if we can actually get to that point. But anyway, back to the transformer. This is a three-phase boost. It could be buck or boost transformer. I'm going to be using in boost mode to take it from 208 to 240. And essentially you bring in the three legs, the L1, 2, and 3 into here, and then and I have yet to open this up, so I don't know what it looks like or where the connections are. I don't know if they're... Okay, so they're in here. and I'll have to sort these out, I guess. So there's two separate transformers here, and we'll have to figure out which wire goes to where. But I was looking at the specs on this, and so this is the manual from online from Dongan, and this is an ODY transformer. So here's the wiring diagram for it. I was looking at some of the specs. This is the 2.8 kilovolt amp capacity, and its maximum amps at the output is 200 at 240 volt output is 6.7 amps per winding. So what I'm hoping is there's a winding set basically for each phase, and having only 6.7 amps per winding is only around 1600 watts available, and that's a little bit less than I'd like. So I really needed the next size, but that wasn't available, and again, it's going to be that much more expensive. So I'm hoping to make this work a little bit better, because I don't need all three phases. I only am interested in one phase. So, and if each winding set can handle 6.7 amps, I'm hoping to double that by putting two sets of windings on one phase, and essentially just moving this connection over to the same line that this other connection is tied to, and then move this connection here over to this line. So that should effectively double the capacity of the transformer, but I don't know if that's how well it's going to work. I'm going to have to make sure that there aren't any eddy currents or something flowing around based on some voltage potentials within the transformer. I plan on putting fuses, 7.5 amp fuses, in the supply line going to the transformer to protect it, and that should take care of any sort of trouble we have with any shorts or grounds or over amp conditions, hopefully. And I'll be checking that as we go to make sure that the amps are within reason and we're not overheating something. So that should double the effectiveness of this, which essentially makes it the same rating as the next one up, which is 13.5 amps. That'll give me a little over 3 kilowatts of power available, which is good. It's not great given the fact it's a 15 kilowatt generator, and essentially I'll have my hands handcuffed to around 3.2 kilowatts coming in at any time through the inverter. The inverter is rated at 4 kilowatts, so it's not a bad thing. It's just that with having that generator with the size it is, it'd be nice to use a little more power out of it. But if I need to do that in those times where I need more power, I can always run an extension cord directly into the sockets on the generator itself. And in the meantime, there's really no situation where I foresee we're going to be using above 3 kilowatts at any given time. But certainly those things can happen over time as you expand the electrical capabilities of your place, and people start turning more things on at once. So it's just something that's just going to have to be monitored. So that's kind of the plan. We'll go ahead and look at what we got here for wiring and hook these up and make sure we understand that, you know, this leg here is going to handle double the amp. So as long as this is a straight through with no smaller wiring, we should be able to handle higher amps on this, what I'm going to call now a non-boosted leg. And then we just got to watch these two legs here to make sure that they're not overamped. But I believe we can go to the same output, which will double that capacity for a single phase application. So that's kind of the plan. We'll see. We'll get some temporary wiring going here. If this ends up working, I'll mount it out there wherever I can find a convenient place, and we'll give it a test. I think we're getting pretty close to testing the first, or at least one of the phases. I'm not going to hook them together yet, but I did want to verify some of the wiring. So I just built a little table and checked the resistance between each of those labelings, and they seem to correspond pretty much with the diagram, although I'm getting zero resistance between the number what is it here, number 1 in the 240 line, 240W. And that shouldn't be happening according to this diagram, but it is according to the measurements I took inside the transformer. I believe there's some wiring that's not shown on the diagram internally that's causing that, but everything else seems to match up. And before I connect wires 1 and what I got labeled 1 and 2 and then R and W together, I just want to hook up the individual lines and then test for 240 volts on at least 2 of the 240 lines. And then once we have that, we'll go ahead and hook up those and then see what we have. Again, always make sure you got the appropriate safeguards in place. Fuses on your lines. I got 2 7.5 amp fuses in parallel on here, which if I got anything shorted or whatever, those are going to blow. But when I put the second wire, I need that extra amp, so that's why there's 2 in parallel there. I could have put just one 15 amp in there, but this is 16 gauge wire, so I don't want to tax it with that many amps. And I don't have a lot of free inline fuses, so I did put 130 amp on the return leg, which technically I wouldn't need unless that shorts out. But always make sure you got the right fuses on everything. And I'll probably lower that because I only had a 30 amp. But again, just in case something happens. And pretty much leaving the wiring as it is. Getting this off eBay, it's hard to tell whether somebody was actually messing around here and changing stuff. And so that's why I wanted to map the resistance readings for the coils. So we should be all right to at least test this, and we'll see what we get on the outputs, and we can go to the next step. All right, I'm going to talk through this real quick before I start the generator, because I know it's a little bit hard to hear me anyway, and we don't need that running on top of it. So I have the 2 lines coming in. I'm only using one phase right now, or actually 2 of the 3. I'm going to leave the 1 phase disconnected for now, and then we'll parallel them in the end. I just want to see if this is going to work the way it is. So if it's how I'm hoping it's going to be, I will have 240 volts out this line and one of these, which I don't know which one it's going to be yet, because it depends on actually this line, and I don't have them both hooked up, so there only should be 240 between one of these 2 wires and this one, and that's what we're going to check. So we'll go ahead and get the generator started and warmed up. Check the oil on it. It looks pretty frosty in there. Could use a little bit of oil, but we're doing okay, so hopefully this thing will start. And I didn't check the temperature, but I'm guessing it's probably around 25 or so. So we'll let that warm up a little bit, and then we'll turn our breaker on and take some voltage readings, and hopefully we'll have some success here. Oh, she's cold. I can smell the ether. I'm actually kind of surprised. The batteries may be a little bit weak. But, hearing a lot of knocking, which isn't really good. Yeah, I'm surprised. Surprised that she's not taking off. Yeah, we're about 22, 23 degrees, but that shouldn't be unmanageable for the generator to start in. Alright, let's give it a try and see what we got. Okay, let's go ahead and check some voltages. One thing I do want to check is see if the battery's actually charging on the generator. So I haven't checked that in a while. Yep, that seems to be working. Let's go ahead and turn the power on and let's see if we can get 240 volts out of this. Hook it up to 1 for now. Move it to the other one if that doesn't work. Volts, so nothing there. Shut the breaker off just in case something's getting hot. Move it over to the other one and hopefully we'll have 240 volts out. If not, I'm not sure what to do. So there's 232, not quite the 240 we were looking for, but might be enough. So that's good news. Go ahead and kill our breaker. Now, we want to hook these wires up together here and also these two. And then we should have doubled our capacity. If my thinking is correct. I'll keep the outputs disconnected. We should see 240 volts on both of them after I hook this up. Get a wire nut to keep these together. I'll see if I got any. I think I do have some wire nuts.
way if we don't burn up something here, we should have 240 volts on both of those output legs, which then can be tied together in parallel. Well, let's see what we got. .31 volts there. Let's go ahead and check the other line. 232 there, so that's good. Now we just want to check to make sure there's no voltage between the two outputs. And there's pretty much nothing, less than 20 millivolts, so those can be tied together. And I think we'll be in pretty good shape then. And we'll be able to see if our inverter charger is going to work. So we should have at least 230 volts up to this point now. We'll go ahead and check and see that the inverter is going to switch over to that, make sure things work, microwave and toaster, and then that will help us see if we're heading in the right direction here with getting to the point where our charger is going to work. That'll be the next step. So what's it telling us? Battery charger's going. 232 volts. Yeah, according to this, it looks like it does have a polarity associated with it. Looks like I could change it right here instead of swapping it over there. Microwave at least has power. Without knowing how much the batteries are taking, I'm a little reluctant to start things up. I'd like to see how much power we got going into the batteries. And it'd be nice to tell us if this told us what we actually had. Let's touch it on here just to see if... So 330 watts, so it's good. It reads, and I'll have to get a meter that reads both directions because that's kind of handy to know. And I either that or get a switch that switches between the two. But I'm sure there must be power meters that read in both directions with the same sort of setup. Yeah, so we're putting out 365 watts now. I guess what I can do is just get another one of those meters and put it on there in reverse, and then I'll have one that checks power in, one that checks power out. So let's go ahead and turn the charging power up. Let's see what this can do. So yeah, there's 2 kilowatts, so that's good. Looks like things are working well. Now we just need to put away the transformer and make a little shelter or box or something to cover for it out there, and I think we'll be okay. And now we know our charger is charging. We have the right voltage going to it. Everything looks to be good. I'll have to do a little research. I don't know if I like seeing that voltage go up to 58 volts when you turn the charger all the way up. I'll have to make sure that that's going to be all right. And I'll have to make sure my settings are okay for lead acid batteries. Otherwise, looks like it's doing what it needs to do, and we can be happy that we have a backup charging source now for the batteries instead of the solar panels. Thanks for watching, guys.